Trump said Iran had nothing left to shoot. Then came Saturday night. U.S. bases across Saudi Arabia hit. The American embassy in Baghdad struck by a missile. Citibank branches across the UAE and Bahrain taken out by drones. The port of Fujairah on fire. And for the first time in this war, Iran fired its heaviest strategic missile, the Sejjil, while U.S. and Israeli interceptor stockpiles are reportedly running dry. So let me ask you a simple question. Who's actually winning this war? Here's what Saudi Arabia tried to do and why it's not going to work. With the Strait of Hormuz effectively shut down, Riyadh activated its backup plan, a plan that was actually built 40 years ago during the Iran-Iraq War, precisely for this scenario. The East-West pipeline, known as Petroline, runs straight across the Arabian Peninsula, from the Gulf Coast all the way to the Red Sea port of Yanbu. Capacity? Up to 7 million barrels a day. Right now, 27 supertankers are already converging on Yanbu. Saudi Arabia is quietly rerouting its entire oil export operation. Smart move, decisive move, exactly the right move on paper. But here's the problem nobody wants to say out loud. Those supertankers coming from Asia, they're too large to pass through the Suez Canal. That means every single one of them has to sail up through the Gulf of Aden, squeeze through the narrow Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and then travel back the exact same way. And who controls Bab el-Mandeb? The Houthis. Iran's proxy force in Yemen has already signaled they are ready and willing to shut that strait down, blocking all commercial and military vessels linked to the U.S. and Israel. Their deputy commander said it plainly on March 14th, "If we make the decision, nothing moves." So think about what just happened. Saudi Arabia escaped the Hormuz chokehold, only to walk directly into the Bab el-Mandeb chokehold, out of the frying pan into the fire. Both strategic choke points, Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb, now sit within Iran's sphere of influence. Tehran doesn't need to win a conventional war, they just need to hold these 2 points. And right now, they're holding both. This is no longer just an oil story. Bloomberg reported this week that Alba, the world's largest aluminum smelter based in Bahrain, has cut production by 20%. That's roughly 2.2% of global aluminum output gone. Not because of a strike, not because of a recession, but because raw materials can't get through the Strait of Hormuz. Think about what that means for supply chains. Aluminum goes into everything: aircraft, cars, construction, packaging, electronics. We're watching a regional military conflict metastasize into a global industrial problem in real time. And this is week 2. There's growing pressure from Western media, from voices inside the Trump administration itself, for the president to claim victory, seize Karg Island as a trophy, and end this. Let me tell you why that's a trap too. Yes, Trump could declare mission accomplished tomorrow. Technically, nothing stops him. But the moment he does, Iran gets to keep the Hormuz blockade as a permanent bargaining chip. Tehran has already started issuing conditions, publicly, brazenly. Any country that expels American and Israeli diplomats gets free passage through Hormuz. Oil tankers that pay in Chinese yuan, not U.S. dollars, may be permitted through. Read that again. Iran is not just blockading a strait. Iran is restructuring the global financial order of oil trading, replacing dollar-denominated transactions with yuan. And if Trump walks away now, those conditions don't disappear. They harden. China and Iran would effectively become the co-landlords of the world's most critical oil passage. Every nation that wants to move energy through Hormuz would have to negotiate with Tehran on Tehran's terms. The war that Trump launched to cut off China's energy supply could end up handing China de facto control over the Persian Gulf. That is the ultimate strategic reversal. A lot of analysts in Israel are pushing hard for the U.S. to seize Karg Island, Iran's primary oil export terminal. The logic sounds clean. Cut Iran's oil revenue, starve the Revolutionary Guards, collapse the regime. Here's the reality. Karg Island is on the wrong side of the equation. It sits deep in the Gulf, Gewürztruhe, far from the Hormuz choke point. Taking it would inflict serious economic pain on Iran, but it would not reopen the strait. It would not stop the Houthis at Bab el-Mandeb. What it would do is trigger exactly what Iran has been threatening, a massive retaliatory strike on every oil and gas production facility across the entire Gulf. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar is feasting all in the crosshairs simultaneously. And then Karg becomes something else, a garrison. American troops pinned down on a hostile island under constant attack, with Iran pouring every remaining resource into making that occupation as bloody and costly as possible. We've seen this movie before. It doesn't end well. Here's the counterintuitive truth that Washington still hasn't fully reckoned with. Before this war, Iran was fracturing. The economy was collapsing under sanctions. Protests in early 2026 killed thousands. The regime was losing legitimacy with its own population. War fixed that. And for the hardliners, external threats don't weaken theocracies. They legitimize them. Every bomb that falls on Tehran gives the Revolutionary Guards a new martyr. Every sanction becomes proof of Western hostility. Every protest leader who might have challenged the system now has to choose between reform and national survival. The hardline faction, a disciplined, organized minority that received 13 million votes in the 2024 presidential election, even while losing, has been waiting for exactly this moment. They don't need a majority. They need a war, and Trump gave them one. The assassination of Supreme Leader Khamenei, rather than decapitating the system, produced something arguably worse from Washington's perspective. Mojtaba Khamenei, reportedly wounded, possibly in a coma, possibly an amputee, has been elevated as supreme leader. He is described by every analyst who knows him as harder than his father. Iran didn't crack. Iran calcified, and Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi made the position crystal clear this week. We see no reason to negotiate with the Americans. This is the second time they've decided to attack us while we were at the table. No ceasefire, no negotiation, continued self-defense. Meanwhile, the new Supreme Leader's first public statement called for keeping Hormuz closed, attacking all U.S. bases in the region, and ominously opening new fronts. Here's a fact that deserves more scrutiny than it's getting. According to Financial Times data from Jefferies Investment Bank, American oil companies have already pocketed $63 billion in windfall profits since this conflict began. With oil up 47%, U.S. shale producers, unlike multinationals exposed to Gulf disruption, are printing money. The war that's squeezing European economies, devastating Asian manufacturers, and destabilizing global supply chains is at the same time making certain American energy interests extraordinarily wealthy. I'm not telling you that's a conspiracy, I'm telling you it's a fact, and it matters for understanding why this war continues. Saudi Arabia thought the East-West pipeline was its escape from Hormuz. It wasn't. It was a detour into Bab el-Mandeb. Trump thought decapitating Iran's leadership would trigger regime change. It didn't. It triggered consolidation around the hardest of hardliners. Trump thought he could declare victory, pivot, and move on. He can't, because walking away now means Iran wins the Strait, wins the WAN for oil trade, and wins the regional power struggle. And so the war continues. Not because anyone has a clear path to victory, but because stopping means accepting a defeat that no one in Washington is willing to put their name on. The only people paying the full price for all of this, Iranian civilians caught between a regime that won't bend and an American military that can't finish what it started. What do you think? Is there a version of this war that ends well for Washington? Drop your perspective in the comments. And if this kind of deep dive analysis is what you want more of, you know what to do.